Okay, before we can get started, we need to plot the points 1, 2, and 3, 4 on a coordinate plane. So 1, 2 is right here. 3, 4 is right here. And now we need to draw a straight line through these points. And label it L. So this is line L. Alright, so question 1 is asking us to write a list of 4 more points on line L. Or 1A is asking us. Now 1B wants us to put the points in a table. So it's actually easier to do, or makes more sense to do B first. So if you look at B, we already have the 2 given points, 1, 2, and then 3 and 4. Now we need to fill in the rest according to the graph. Alright, so let's start from the top. When x is negative 2, y is negative 1. When x is negative 1, y is 0. When x is 0, y is 1. When x is 2, y is 3. Alright, and by now you should be able to see a pattern here. Whatever x is, y is 1 more than x. So for these two, I don't even need to check the graph. I should feel pretty confident writing down y is 5 and y is 6. And we can look at the graph just to confirm. When x is 4, y is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Y is 5. Okay, so we can apply that to the other two. Right now in our graph, it's not possible to plot the points 10 for x, but we don't need to because we already figured it out. Whatever x is, y is simply x plus 1. Alright, so if x is 10, y is 11. If x is 20, y is 21. And we can maybe go a little bit further. If x is 30, y is 31. Alright, so going back to our question, 1b is basically completed in the table. And 1a, we can just pick any 4 points we want. So I can just start from the top, negative 2, comma, negative 1, negative 1, 0, 0, 1, and since 1, 2 is given, I need to pick a different one. 2, 3. Alright, those aren't the only possible answers. You can list other ones that are on the table. Either one of those would work. Alright, moving on to question 2. What point has first coordinate 30? Alright, so the first coordinate is the x coordinate. So when the x coordinate is 30, what is the point? Well, the point is 30, comma, 31. Alright, now we just happen to have that point on the table. Now what if we didn't have a point? So 2b is asking what point has second coordinate 30. Okay, so if the second coordinate is 30, what would the point be? Well, if y is 30, using this equation, x would be 29. Since if you add 1 to 29, you would get 30. Alright, so the answer to 2b is 29, comma, 30. Alright, and then question 3 is asking us to write an equation defining y in terms of x. So meaning we want to write an equation y equals and something, either adding x adds to something or x multiplies by something or a combination of those. But in this case, we already figured it out. Y is simply x plus 1. Alright, so that's the answer to number 3. Alright, moving on to number 4. If P is the first coordinate of a point on the line, what is the second coordinate of the point in terms of P? Alright, these are basically asking the same question, but we're just writing it in different ways. So if the first coordinate is P, we know that the second coordinate is whatever the first coordinate plus 1. So now the first coordinate's not x anymore, it's defined by p. So the second coordinate is simply p plus 1. All right. Question 4b. If q is the second coordinate, what would the first coordinate be in terms of q? Right, so that point would be q minus 1 q. Okay. All right, so that is 1 through 4. Now 5 through 7, I need to come up with a different graph. All right, we're supposed to plot the points 2, 6, which is right here, and then 4, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is right here. All right, and do the same thing, connect it with a line. And this line is labeled M. All right, and then the same drill. 5A is asking us to write a list of 4 points. 5B is asking us to make a table. So let's go and make that table first. Okay, now probably start from the same spot again, -2, -1, 0. Now the starting point could be different. I mean, you kind of want to just include a couple negative numbers and then go down, go through the order. All right, and since they stopped at 5, we can kind of do the same thing, have a 10, 20, and then 30. All right, so when x is -2, y is 2. When x is -1, y is 3. When x is 0, y is 4. Right, when x is 1, y is 5. All right, and then 2, 6 was given to us. And let's go on and fill in the other one that was given to us. All right, and by this point, I shouldn't even need to look at the graph anymore. Oops, sorry, I can't see it. I shouldn't need to look at the graph anymore. I can tell that whatever x is, y is simply x plus 4. Okay, so for here, 5 plus 4 gives me 9, 10 plus 4 gives me 14, 20 plus 4 gives me 24, 30 plus 4 gives me 34. All right, there's our table. And again, they can stop at a certain point. They don't, I mean, as long as the table has, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 coordinates or ordered pairs, that would be enough. All right, so going back to question 5A, I'm going to skip this just because you can just see the table. All right, 5B, same thing, see table. All right, 5C, what point has first coordinate 10? All right, so if you can look at our table, we can look at the graph too, but table will probably be easier. So the first coordinate, meaning the x coordinate, is 10. That means the y coordinate is 14. So at that point is 10, 14. All right, 5D, what point has second coordinate 24? So meaning the y coordinate. When the y coordinate is 24, and we just happen to have it on the table. The first coordinate is 20, so that point is 20, 24. Now if we didn't have that point, let's just make up another question. What if the second coordinate was 28? We simply subtract 4 from that to get the x coordinate. Okay, since we have figured out the pattern, whatever x is, y is x plus 4. All right, so if you look at 6a, what point has first coordinate x? All right, that point would be x and x plus 4. Right. What point has second coordinate y? That point would be y minus 4, comma, y. Right. We're basically writing the same thing as earlier, but we're just using the variables it's defining and then manipulating the variable or adding or subtracting from that variable to give us the answer. Right, and then lastly we have question 7. What is the equation? We already found that out through the table. The equation is y equals x plus 4. For number 8, we need to plot the graph line that satisfies the equation y equals 4x. Now, before we can graph, it's always better to make a table first. That'll make graphing a lot easier. Right? So I'm going to start with -5 and work my way up to +5. That should give me plenty of points to graph. Alright, so when x is -5, y would be -20 because -5 times 4 gives me -20. Right, then -4 times 4 gives me -16. -3 times 4 is -12. -2 times 4 is -8. And -1 times 4 is -4. 0 times 4 is 0. 1 times 4 is 4. Then 8. Then 12. 16. And then 20. Alright. So now I have plenty of points to graph. The thing is, if we were to have each of these square units be 1 for the y-axis, we wouldn't have enough room. So we would need to use a scale. The horizontal axis can stay increasing 1 at a time, and it's separate from the vertical axis. That won't affect, it will affect the shape, the angles of the line, but it will still stay true. And as long as you keep it constant throughout the same axis. Right? So in this case, we could either, maybe each box is 2. That still wouldn't be enough, or each box is 5. But the smart thing to do would be just to do multiples of 4, since we know that it's 4 times x. So if we make this 4, 8, 12, you can see each of the points will represent a point on the table, and that makes graphing really easy. So we just go fill out the rest. Right, and then there's the negative side. Right, and now I can graph the points. -5, -20 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down to -20, be right here. Right, -4, -16, be right here. -3, -12, -2, -8, -1, -4, and then 0, 0. And now we come to the positive side, 1, 4, 2, 8, and then really we can go just fill in the rest, because this should make a straight line, and that kind of confirms that we did this correct, is when we have a straight line. Right, and there's our graph with all the points. Okay, now you don't need 10 points, really you just need 2 points to create the graph, but to be thorough, 10 is usually a good number. Right, now to answer the questions for number 8, 8a is asking what point on the line has 5 as the first coordinate. We can just look at our table. When 5 is the first coordinate, y is 20. So that point is 5, 20. Alright, question B, what point on the line has 24 as the second coordinate? So y is 24. Now we don't have it on our table. We could create one, but if you look ahead of the questions, it looks like the numbers are going to get bigger and bigger, with the biggest one being 92. Right? We could keep on increasing on the table, but really the most effective way would just to use the equation right here, y equals 4x, right? Except we know what we want y to be. So for b, y is 24 equals 4x. Now we simply just solve for x, right? We divide both sides by 4, right? X will equal to 6. All right, so that point would be 6, comma 24. Right, so for C, do the same thing, y equals 56, and that equals to 4x. And we can divide both sides by 4. Right, x what gives it is 56 divided by 4, which is 16. Right, that point would be 16, comma 56. Right, and then we can do that for the rest. We got 92 equals 4x. Right, divide both sides by 4. X will equal to 23. Now, I'm skipping some work, and maybe they can't do 92 divided by 4 in their heads, and they would just go ahead and do long division, right? Or they just set it up right here and just work their way down to the answer. All right, so 23, comma 92 would be the point. All right, you remember that the question is asking what point on the line, so it's not asking what would x be. All right, so just a little slight difference in how you answer that. All right, E is saying if y is negative 36. All right, so this is a little different. All right, because now we have a negative number. Now, if we remember, if we have a negative number dividing a positive number, the answer would be negative. Right, so negative 36 divided by 4 will equal to negative 9. Right, so the point being negative 9, comma negative 36. Okay, and last we have F. What are the independent and dependent variables? Right, the independent variable is always the x, and the dependent variable is always the y. Right, so independent equals the x values or x coordinates. Right, dependent equals the y values or y coordinates. Right, moving on to number 9. Right, and similar question, except now our equation is y equals negative 6x. All right, so same thing. Let's do a table first. Negative 6x. Let's start with negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2. And again, you don't have to start all the way from negative 5. You can start wherever you want to. I just like to be a little more thorough here. All right, negative 5 times negative 6 gives me positive 30. Negative 4 times negative 6 gives me a positive 24. Negative 3 times negative 6 is a positive 18. I'm just going to go a little faster. All right, get to positive number multiplied by negative number. That'll give me a negative number. All right, then negative 12, negative 18, negative 24, negative 30. All right, now same thing as earlier. If we just plot it one at a time, we wouldn't have enough room for the y-axis, so we would use a scale. And the easy thing to do was just to use multiples of 6. And I'm going ahead and fill in these. Alright, now I can plot my points. And we have negative 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're at 30. Negative 4 is at 24. And really, once I have the first couple points, the rest should fall in. Right now, unless I made a mistake in my scale, this line should be straight. Alright, so there's our line. Now we answer the questions. 9A what point on the line has 5 as the first coordinate? All right, so I go to our table. 5, y is negative 30, so answer is 5 comma negative 30. All right, B, what point on the line has negative 18 as the second coordinate? All right, so just like earlier, we could look at our table, and if it just happened to have that, negative 18, then we would get our answer. Now, if we didn't have the table, or we just didn't get to that part of the table, we can simply just use the equation y equals negative 6x and just solve for x. All right, so let's go and do that. So if y is negative 18, and that equals to negative 6x, all right, divide both sides by negative 6. All right, negative negative gives me a positive, so x will equal to positive 3. All right, and putting that in coordinate form, 3 comma negative 18 would be the answer to B. All right, C, if y is negative 42, right, what is x? All right, divide both sides by negative 6. Then x will equal to 7. Right, so in coordinate form, 7 comma negative 42. All right, last, what point on the line has 12 as the second coordinate? So y equals 12. That equals to negative 6 times x. Divide both sides by negative 6. X will equal to negative 2. Alright, so coordinate form, negative 2, comma 12. Oops, forgot the parentheses. That would be my answer. Alright, so that is number 8 and number 9. And we can move on to number 14. I'm going to use the backs of this. Alright, so number 14. Y equals negative 2x plus 12. Alright, so 14a wants us to make a table with force coordinates ranging from negative 8 to 8. Alright, so that means we start with negative 8 and work our way up all the way to positive 8. Alright, so this is a pretty long one. Alright, so this, they may need to work it out a little more. So negative 8 times negative 2 will give me positive 16, and then 16 plus 12 will give me 28. All right, and again, I suggest you actually work it out if they need to. All right, and in a second, there's actually, it will go by a lot faster because you'll see in a second that there's going to be a pattern, and then we can just start filling it in automatically. All right, but before we do that, let's solve a couple more. Negative 7 times negative 2 is positive 14. 14 plus 12 is 26. All right, negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. 12 plus 12 is 24. All right, so we can see that each time we go down, we are decreasing y by 2. All right, so we can feel pretty confidently that we can just fill these in. And you can always check, right? Let's use this as a checking point. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. 2 plus 12 is 14, and there you go. All right. Now that we're going through like the halfway point, maybe we should just double check and nothing is out of place. 0 times negative 2 is 0. 0 plus 12 is 12. 1 plus negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 12 is 10. All right, it looks like this pattern continues, keeps on going until it hits 0. Well, let's confirm that it is 0. 6 times negative 2, oops, can't see it. All right, 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 12 is 0. All right, 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. Negative 14 plus 12 will give us a negative 2. And then we finish up with a negative 4. All right, so there's our table. And now for 14b, we need to plot these points on a coordinate plane. All right, I'm going to go and skip that. By now, it should be pretty straightforward on how to graph. And same thing, if you don't want to have a humongous graph, you can make each vertical hash mark a power of, in this case, you want to kind of see your range. And we're going from -4 to 28. So you can even make your graph in a way where we have more positive values than negative values. Right, so maybe we have a little longer there and a little shorter over here. Right, left and right, we still need at least 8 because we have -8 to 8. But the positive side, the vertical side, the highest number we got is 28, and then we work all the way down to just -4. Right, so we really don't need too many negative numbers down here. Right, so looking at this, the logical thing to do would be make each one scale of 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, all the way up. So you would need at least 14 dashes to get to 28, but that's not too bad. All right, and after you graph it, it should be a straight line. If it's not a straight line, there's a mistake in the calculation, or there's a mistake in one of your scales over here. All right, but like I said, I'm going to skip that. That should be pretty straightforward. Last question, 14C. What is the x coordinate when the y coordinate is 30? All right, so we could do that with the table if we had 30, which we don't. All right, if we don't, we could use the graph. But again, if you need the graph, you need to actually have that point on there. So it's always may not be the easiest, but the fastest way would just be use the equation y equals -2x plus 12. All right, in this case, y coordinate is 30, so we just set the equation equal to 30. All right, now this was from the previous chapter, solving a multi-step equation. All right, so first thing you want to determine is what is happening to x. X is being multiplied by -2 first, and then increased by 12. So if we were to solve, we're going backwards, we want to get rid of the increased by 12 first, then we can get rid of the multiplied by -2. All right, so to get rid of plus 12, we need to subtract 12 from both sides. All right, 30 minus 12 is 18. Over here, we're left with a -2 times x. Now we can divide both sides by -2. And this side we are left with a -9, and this side we're left with x. X equals -9. So the x coordinate is -9.